Morning everybody again. Day 58, Tuesday, 14th of July 2020. One church, session 5. Maybe one more session after this, I think. And then I'll let you off then. We'll do something else. But we're looking at this church that is dysfunctional and not able to to get out of the starting blocks, basically. Because we're not acting as one. This was demonstrated to me, over these years, as a lovely man called Stanley Hall brought the church. He acted like an apostle to the churches in Royton. He brought us together and the ministers together, and we came together once a month for a meal. And he faithfully organised us into that. And now he's not around for the moment, and we're suffering from that lack of that organisation. Apart from the lack of leadership in the churches now, it's getting really bad. But we would meet at the Turk's Head or the Pucker's Lair somewhere, and all get together for a meal. And my observation was that for all 10 churches in Royton, my church was the only church that had an administration in Royton that did not have to refer to anybody outside. When I became pastor and we said we'll not be denominational, the people that we were kind of denominational with said, "Fine, you go away, leave us alone. You're not one of us anymore. You're not allowed to fellowship with us at our meetings anymore." We were kicked out, and so we've been, we've been on our own, but we make our own decisions. But the other churches all have to refer to a bishop or a superintendent or somebody out there before they can make any major decisions. They'll make minor decisions, but so that's a weakness, a big weakness, that these local people can't all see it as it is and then get on and do it. So that's the problem. So what springs out of that is Christians frustrated who want to do something, and so you have. We have thousands of denominations now, all not being able to do anything. And then we have parachurch things. People in those congregations frustrated they can't, and starting something on their own outside. So loads of Christians are doing loads of really good things. So don't mistake me for saying everything's rubbish. It's just the governance of it is all rubbish. But these people are doing some great things. But the parachurches, we call them, it might be, some people from different churches, who actually come together to do something. And that's great. But it should be better, and it should be bigger than that. And that demonstrates the dysfunctional nature of the church. They should be under the umbrella of the church and all being one and all flowing beautifully together. So that then the other really, really big, this is really, really big, the issue is that all of the different churches have their own articles of faith, as they call them. So the Baptists, the strict Baptists that I came from, had the 1669, I think it was, Confession of Faith for strict Baptists. And the Anglicans will have what they've written, and the Catholics will have what they've written, and everybody, even new churches starting up, they write one. Now there's a word in the scriptures that says you shouldn't do that. The scriptures is what is your articles of faith. These are the articles of faith. This book, wherever my Bible is, I've left it downstairs. That book, that's the articles of faith. Right on the last chapter of that book, it says, "Don't add to this, and don't take away from it. Just use this." But they don't. They're articles of faith, and the devil's inspired that. The devil's inspired the divisions, and the devil's inspired that. So we're all contracting with the devil against one another, against the command of Jesus to love one another, and against the prayers of Jesus, his desires for us to be one. And those articles of faith need to be thrown away. They need to be renounced and got rid of. So we did that shortly after I became pastor. It wasn't part of the initial thing that I said, but in that next year or so, I taught the church and we renounced being denominational. So in the early 80s, I was I was involved with a group of ministers across Oldham, the Evangelical Fellowship, and for one reason or other it collapsed. And so there ended up being about 6 or 8 of us in a room, and they said, would you like to be chairman, Jeff? No, it's collapsed. Now there's nothing, 30 of us getting together, and in a year it collapsed. That's another story. And I said, I thought about it. I went away and thought about it, and I said, okay, how will we? So long as we commit to the concept of seeking to bring one church together in Oldham. And they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Some didn't agree with it. Some said, well, denominations is good and we're going to stay with denominations. So in as much as they couldn't agree to that, then I couldn't agree to be chairman, and it fizzled out. There's a small fellowship being nurtured, evangelistic fellowship being nurtured again, but it's not big. It's not big anymore. So we're contracted against each other. So those that's a big thing, you see. How am I going to get the Church of England to scrap their confession of faith? How am I going, not that it's all wrong. It's just not right. It just shouldn't exist because it contracts us against these other people who've got hold on 98% of it, and 98% of it is all the same. It's just 2% they're falling out about, and then we won't, So the devil's really got us on the end of a string, and he's playing with us. So that the figureheads of these denominations speak, but there is no power, there is no authority. And my last point for this morning would be to say that an organisation, a global organisation with as many members as what the Christian faith has around the world now, every nation, in my opinion, hardly anybody has not heard of the name of Jesus anywhere. An organisation that big should have an influence on what happens in the world. And our influence is very, very small in comparison to the size of our membership. And it's because we are not working together. We're not listening to the head. We're listening to other heads, and we're not filled with the Spirit. Each of us is not filled with the Spirit as we ought to be. We're not functioning. In all this dysfunctionality, we are each not functioning to the fullness of the Spirit that is within us. We should each be behaving and looking like Jesus, saying and doing the things and behaving like he does, and the ministry that he had. That's how strong and powerful we really should be. Another really interesting thing tomorrow. Well, I find it interesting. I'm really looking forward to saying it tomorrow. I hope I can say it briefly. Oh, there's my wife coming in. Better go. See you. Bye.